She was born in the unthinkable, abandoned before she had a name. But what happened next will break you, and then heal you. You think you've heard stories of survival? Not like this one. Wait until the final moment. You won't believe where she ends up. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Beachly. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. My name is Vanessa Hart, and before I had that name, before anyone ever spoke to me with kindness or called me by anything other than the baby, I was left to die in a garbage bin. It was a cold night in November. The sky was dark, no stars, just clouds that looked like smoke. The wind blew hard that evening in Detroit, cutting through alleyways, sending empty cans rolling and wrappers flying. And somewhere behind a grocery store, next to bags of rotten vegetables and torn cardboard boxes, I was born. Not in a hospital, not in a warm room with blankets and doctors and people smiling, but on a wet, dirty ground next to a dumpster. That was my entrance into this world. My mother, whoever she was, must have been alone. Or maybe not. Maybe someone was with her. I'll never know. Nobody ever found her. No note. No name. No explanation. Just a blood-stained sheet wrapped around a screaming, helpless newborn. They said I cried for hours until a man taking out the trash finally heard me. He thought it was a dying cat. When he opened the lid and saw me, he dropped the trash bags and started shouting. Neighbors came. Someone called the police. An ambulance came. And just like that, I was no longer trash. But I didn't feel saved. I was placed in the hospital. They called me Baby Jane Doe. It was the name they gave to babies with no past. I had no birth certificate, no family, no history. Just a tiny wristband and a quiet cry that made the nurses say, "She doesn't fuss much. She just looks lost." I was only 2 days old. And already I was alone. I spent my first 5 years in the foster care system. I don't remember everything from those early years. Just flashes. Like broken glass. A woman with rough hands giving me a bath in a metal tub. A man yelling because I spilled juice on the floor. A boy pulling my hair and laughing while no one stopped him. I learned quickly that I had no place to call mine. Every room I entered already had its rules. Every house had its own smell, some of soap and food, others of mildew, smoke, and sadness. I learned how to pack a bag at 3 years old. Diaper. Pajamas. Little doll with no eye. I clutched her like she was my sister. Sometimes the people I stayed with were quiet and cold. Other times, they were angry and cruel. One woman made me sleep in the hallway because I didn't deserve a room. One man used to put tape over my mouth when I cried. No one hugged me. No one said I love you. Not once. I remember sitting by a window at 4 years old, watching the other neighborhood kids play outside with their parents, laughing and running. I remember pressing my face against the cold glass and whispering, "Why not me?" But no one answered. By the time I turned 5, I stopped asking questions. I learned to keep my mouth shut, eyes low, and heart locked. I didn't want to be noticed. I didn't want to be hit or sent away again. I didn't want to feel anything at all. Then came the Martins. They were the last foster family I stayed with. At least the last before I ran away years later. They gave me a room and a new name, Vanessa. Mrs. Martin said it was a clean name for a new start. But even as a child, I knew you can't clean a wound just by calling it something else. The room was small, with peeling wallpaper and a bed that smelled like old clothes. Mr. Martin rarely spoke to me. When he did, his voice was rough, like gravel. Mrs. Martin had eyes that never smiled. They fed me, yes. They gave me clothes, hand-me-downs from a neighbor's daughter. But they never gave me warmth, never gave me family. I was a number on a check. A girl they tolerated. And worse, it wasn't long before I learned that Mr. Martin looked at me the way no man should look at a little girl. I wish I could say someone saved me then. That a teacher saw the signs. That a neighbor stepped in. But no one did. I was too scared to speak. Too ashamed to scream. and too small to understand how something so wrong could happen so quietly behind closed doors. I used to stare at the ceiling at night, holding my breath, counting the cracks, praying to a God I didn't even believe in. Please make me invisible. Please make me disappear. But every morning I woke up still there. Still in that house. Still in a life I never asked for. People often say, "You were just a child. You couldn't have known what was happening." But I did. Not in words, but in feelings. In my body. In the way my stomach turned when I heard his footsteps. In the way I flinched when someone tried to touch my shoulder, even kindly. I knew I wasn't safe. And I knew that no one was coming for me. That's the first lesson life taught me. No one is coming. You're on your own. And so I learned to survive. Not to live. Just to survive. That was my beginning. Not with love. Not with a name. Not with safety or comfort or even hope. I was born in a dustbin. Thrown away like nothing. But somehow I lived. And that was just the start. After the Martins, things only got worse. When I turned 6, a new social worker came. She had bright red lipstick and called me sweetheart the first time we met. Her name was Miss Brenda. She smelled like flowers, and her shoes made clicking sounds when she walked. She knelt down in front of me one day and said, "Vanessa, you're going to a new home. A better one. I promise." I wanted to believe her. I really did. I climbed into her car, holding a plastic bag with my few belongings. A pair of jeans that were too tight, a torn teddy bear, and the cracked photo of a smiling girl from a magazine. I used to pretend that girl was my sister. As we drove, I kept looking out the window, wondering what a better home looked like. Maybe there'd be pancakes. Maybe a warm bed. Maybe someone would even say, "Good night." But I was wrong. The Browns lived in a big house. Big enough to make me feel even smaller. The walls were white. Too white. The kind of clean that feels cold. The kind that makes you afraid to breathe too loud. Mr. Brown was a pastor. Everyone called him Reverend. On Sundays, the house filled with people singing and clapping. They called it worship. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. He used to make me kneel for hours in prayer when I did something wrong. Like spill milk. Or cry at night. Or ask for more food. And when that didn't work, he used a belt. I still have the scars on the back of my thighs. Mrs. Brown was quiet. She never stopped him. She just shook her head and said, "You have a demon inside you. You were born from sin. We're trying to save you." I didn't feel saved. I felt scared. I stayed with the Browns for almost a year. I barely spoke. I stopped looking people in the eye. I stopped playing. My childhood was slipping away, piece by piece, and no one noticed. I was 7 when they moved me again. Another family. Another room. Another set of rules. This time it was the Trentons. They smiled during the home visit, said all the right things to the social worker. But when the door closed, it was like stepping into a cage. Mr. Trenton was a truck driver. He was gone for days, then came home smelling like smoke and cheap alcohol. When he looked at me, it wasn't like I was a child. It was like I was something else. His eyes made my skin crawl. The first time he touched me, I froze. I didn't even cry. I just went somewhere in my head, a faraway place, a quiet place. And when it was over, I went to the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and stared at my legs. I remember whispering, "I'm not real. I'm not here." That's how I survived. By disappearing inside myself. I told no one. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew what would happen if I did. Nothing. No one believed kids like me. Foster kids. System kids. We were troubled. We were difficult. We were the ones who lied, they said. So I stayed silent. And he kept coming. By the time I turned 10, I had been in 7 different homes. Some were bad. Some were worse. And some were just plain empty, like walking into a room with no air. At one home, I had to share a bed with 3 other girls. At another, I was locked in the basement for days as punishment for talking back. But the worst part of it all wasn't the pain. It was the loneliness. The deep, aching kind that settles into your bones and makes you forget what love feels like. I remember my 10th birthday. I sat on the edge of a dirty mattress with a broken radio playing static. No cake, no candles, no hugs. Just me. Alone. I took a pen and wrote on the wall beside my bed. No one loves you. Don't forget. That was the truth I carried with me every day. I started stealing food from the kitchen when I got hungry, taking coins from coat pockets, skipping school. By 12, I was fighting back, pushing people away, running off, swearing, acting wild. They called me damaged. They said, "She has behavioral issues." But none of them ever asked, "What happened to this girl?" Only, "What's wrong with her?" I started believing something was wrong with me, that maybe I was born broken. Maybe my own mother threw me away because she saw it first. And so I became what they said I was: angry, mean, empty. I ran away for the first time at 13. It was summer, hot and sticky. I slipped out the window while everyone was asleep, carrying a backpack with 3 things: my teddy bear, a stolen granola bar, and the only pair of shoes that fit. No one came looking for me. No one called the police. No missing poster. Nothing. And that's when I finally understood. I didn't matter to anyone. Not enough to be missed. Not enough to be loved. I slept in bus stops. I stole food from gas stations. I bathed in public bathrooms. Sometimes I got lucky and met someone kind who bought me food or let me rest for a night. Most times I got kicked, spat at, or chased away like a stray animal. Detroit was loud, harsh, cold. Even in summer, it felt like winter. I watched happy families through windows. I stared at girls my age in clean clothes, laughing with friends, going to school. And I asked the question that would haunt me for years. What did I do wrong? That's how I entered the streets. Not because I wanted to, but because no one gave me another option. I didn't run away from home. I ran looking for one. And I never found it. Not then. Not for a long, long time. When I turned 15, I stopped counting how many nights I slept outside. Some were under bridges. Others behind fast food joints or inside empty buildings that smelled like rats and wet clothes. Sometimes I shared space with other runaways, kids like me with nowhere to go, too young to be homeless, too old to be saved. We traded stories for warmth. We huddled close when the nights got cold. But deep down, we all knew the truth. We were alone. Food was never enough. I dug through dumpsters behind restaurants. I waited outside gas stations, asking strangers if they had leftovers. Sometimes they gave me a sandwich or fries. Other times they called me names, told me to get a job. One man spit in my face and said, "You're what's wrong with this city." I wiped it off and walked away. I wanted to scream. But what would I scream? And who would listen? It was during one of those nights that I met Raina. She was 17. Tall, loud, wild, with this bright red lipstick that looked like war paint. She had this way of walking like the world owed her something. She found me sitting behind a liquor store, shivering with a bloody sock wrapped around a cut on my leg. She handed me a cheeseburger and said, "Eat. You look like you're about to die." I didn't even say thank you. I just ate. From that night on, we were together. Sisters in a way. Raina knew how to survive. She showed me how to talk to men without looking scared, how to hide a knife in my boot, how to steal without getting caught, how to lie with a smile. She had a rule: never get too soft. This world eats soft girls alive. But the streets don't care about your rules. They chew you up anyway. Raina introduced me to a man named Chase. He was slick, always in clean clothes, always smiling. He said he could help us make money. We just had to look pretty and be friendly. At 16, I didn't understand what that really meant. Not until I was in the back seat of a stranger's car, heart pounding, praying it would be over fast. After that night, something inside me broke. I felt nothing. No shame. No sadness. Just emptiness. The first time I used drugs, I was still shaking from a rough client. Raina gave me a pill and said, "Swallow this. You'll stop feeling. She was right. It was like someone turned off the world. The voices in my head got quiet. The pain in my body disappeared. I floated above it all. That was my first high. And it became my new escape. Cocaine kept me going when I had to stay up all night. Pills helped me sleep when the memories crawled into bed with me. Heroin, that was different. Heroin made me forget everything. The dumpster. The beatings. The hands. The hunger. It made me feel warm, even when I was alone in the cold. But the peace never lasted. And the cost kept rising. By 18, I was fully in the life. We called it working, but it wasn't a job. It was survival. It was lying down with strangers, letting them do things while I stared at the ceiling and counted cracks, just like I used to do as a child. Only now I was grown, and the pain was deeper. Some nights I made good money. Other nights I got robbed, beat up, left bleeding in alleyways. Once, a man held a knife to my throat because I said the wrong name. Another time, I woke up in an abandoned lot, pants torn, head throbbing, unable to remember what had happened the night before. I wanted to die, but I didn't. I kept waking up, and that felt like a curse. Raina died 2 weeks before her 20th birthday. I found her in a motel bathtub, lips blue, eyes wide open. She'd overdosed on something laced, probably fentanyl. We didn't even know what we were taking anymore. I sat on the bathroom floor, holding her hand, crying like a child, rocking back and forth. She was the only person who had ever chosen me, who had fed me, talked to me, laughed with me. And now she was gone. That night, I walked barefoot through the city. It was raining. Hard. People passed by, not even looking at me. I kept saying her name over and over. Raina, Raina, Raina. Like if I said enough, maybe God would hear. But no one answered. After Raina, I fell deep into the dark. I stopped talking, stopped eating. I slept with anyone who had cash or drugs. Sometimes both. I didn't care anymore. My body was a tool. My soul was already gone. I had no mirror, no future, no past. Just a haze of high after high, trying to erase everything I'd ever felt. I lost track of the days, of my age, of who I was. Some nights, I stared at the ceiling of another dirty motel room and whispered, I was supposed to be more than this. But I wasn't. I was just a girl nobody wanted, born in a trash bin, now living like trash, and still, somehow, breathing. I didn't know it yet, but that was the bottom, the very bottom. And sometimes, when you're all the way down, that's when something finally changes. I was 28 when it happened. 10 years of street life behind me. 10 years of being used, forgotten, numb. I didn't care about my future anymore. I didn't care about my health. I didn't care if I lived or died. I had stopped being a person. I was just surviving. That night, it was raining again. Cold, heavy rain that felt like it was punishing the world. I was standing outside a small diner downtown. Wet, shaking, hungry. My shoes were soaked through. My coat was thin and torn. I had makeup smeared on my face from a job that went bad, real bad. I had nothing left in my pocket but a used tissue and a broken lighter. I leaned against the wall, trying to act like I didn't care. Then I heard a voice. Hey, you okay? I looked up. A man was standing there, holding a cup of coffee. He had kind eyes. Brown, warm, full of something I hadn't seen in years. Concern. I rolled my eyes. What do you want? He shook his head. Nothing. Just thought you might want this. He held out the coffee. I hesitated. Then I took it. My hands were so cold they shook. The warmth from the cup almost made me cry. But I didn't. I just muttered, thanks. He smiled and walked away. I didn't think I'd ever see him again. But he came back. The next night. And the next. He never tried to touch me. Never looked at me like I was a thing. He just talked. About books. About music. About the weather. He told me his name was Michael. He worked in business. Lived not too far away. Why are you talking to me? I asked one night, staring at him like he was crazy. He shrugged. Because I see you. I laughed. Bitter. Harsh. No, you don't. You see what's left of me. And there's not much. Michael didn't flinch. He looked straight at me and said, "You're not trash, Vanessa. You've just been treated like it for too long." That's when I froze. He said my name. My real name. I didn't remember telling him. It felt strange hearing it again. Like I was waking up from a long sleep. Over the next few weeks, he kept showing up. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with blankets. One night, he brought me an old paperback novel. "You like to read?" he asked. I hadn't read anything in years, but I said yes. Because something in me wanted to. I wish I could say I changed overnight. That his kindness flipped a switch inside me. But it didn't. Because broken things don't heal that fast. One night, I didn't show up at the diner. I was high, sleeping off a bad trip in the back of an abandoned bus. The next night, I came back, thinking he'd be gone. But Michael was there. Waiting. He stood up and walked to me. I was worried. I shook my head. "Don't be. I'm not worth it." And then I said something I had never told anyone. "I'm tired, Michael. I don't want to do this anymore. I want out, but I don't know how." He didn't judge me. He didn't preach. He just sat beside me in the rain and said softly, "Then let me help." Michael offered to take me to a shelter. I laughed in his face. "You think I haven't been to shelters? They kick you out after 3 nights. They treat you like a disease." "This one is different," he said. "I'll pay for a place. I'll help you get clean. If you want it." I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I didn't trust him. But I was so tired. So tired of pain. So tired of being numb. So I nodded. And for the first time in years, I followed someone not because I had to, but because something deep inside whispered, "Try. Just one more time. Try." The place was small. A private room in a women's recovery home. Clean sheets. Hot water. No men. No clients. No drugs. Just silence. And that silence? It was loud. It screamed memories at me. Faces. Voices. Pain. I couldn't sleep. I cried the first night. Then the second. On the third, I almost left. I grabbed my coat and walked outside. Michael was there. In his car. Waiting. "I knew you'd try to run," he said gently. "I don't deserve this," I whispered. He looked at me, eyes full of something I didn't know how to name. "Vanessa," he said. "You don't have to deserve love. You just have to accept it." And he drove me back. No anger. No pressure. Just love. The journey had begun. But healing is not easy. The pain gets worse before it gets better. And my past wasn't done with me yet. The first 3 days, I couldn't stop shaking. My hands wouldn't stay still. My body ached. My head felt like it was cracking open. I threw up everything I ate. I screamed in the middle of the night, clawing at the sheets, begging for something, anything, to make it stop. That was withdrawal. That was what 10 years of drugs did to me. I had used those drugs to survive, to forget, to keep going. Now that they were gone, the pain came back like a flood I couldn't hold back. And the memories, they didn't just return. They attacked. I saw Mr. Trenton's face in my sleep. I heard Raina's laughter, then her silence. I remembered cold floors, strange hands, motel rooms, blood on my legs, vomit on my shirt, the sound of my own voice begging, "Please no. Please stop." I wanted to run. I packed my bag on the 5th night. But when I opened the door, Michael was standing there. Again. He didn't try to stop me. He just looked at me and said, "You can run. Or you can heal. But you can't do both." I dropped the bag. And I cried. The days crawled by after that. Every hour was a fight. They had group therapy every morning. At first, I just sat there, arms crossed, silent, listening to other women talk about pain that sounded a lot like mine. Some were mothers. Some were younger than me. Some had stories worse than mine, if you can believe that. But we all carried the same look in our eyes, pain covered by shame, hope buried under fear. One day, the counselor, her name was Miss Laura, asked me to share. I didn't want to, but I did. Piece by piece. I told them about the dumpster, the beatings, the touch that wasn't safe, the drugs, Raina, the night I almost let myself die. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one of the women stood up, walked over, and hugged me. It was the first real hug I'd felt in over 20 years. And I broke again. Michael came every weekend. He brought books, flowers, sometimes a chocolate bar, which I hid under my pillow like a child. He never asked for anything. He just sat with me, listened, reminded me I mattered, even when I couldn't believe it myself. One afternoon, I asked him, "Why are you doing this? Why me?" He smiled and said, "Because I see something in you that you can't see yet. But you will." I held on to that. Every time I wanted to quit, every time I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw, every time the shame screamed louder than my courage, I held on to his words like a rope in the dark. Rehab wasn't a straight line. I relapsed once after 2 months. I snuck out and used. The high didn't even feel good. It just made the noise stop for a few hours. When I came back, I was shaking with guilt, ready to be kicked out, ready for Michael to say, "I'm done." But he didn't. He hugged me and said, "You made a mistake, but you're not a mistake." No one had ever said that to me. Slowly, the fog started to lift. I started walking outside during breaks. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time when another girl made a joke about how rehab food tasted like cardboard. I wrote in a journal. I started reading again, page after page, feeding a mind that had been starved for years. And every time I got through a day without using, I marked a small V on the inside of my wrist with a pen. V for Vanessa. V for victory. One day at a time. One breath at a time. After 6 months, I graduated from the program. I had never graduated from anything in my life. Miss Laura hugged me tight. "You've done more than survive," she said. "You've started to live." Michael took me to dinner that night. A real dinner. At a place with candles and soft music. I wore a simple dress he bought for me, a soft blue one. I didn't feel beautiful, but I felt clean. New. He didn't try to hold my hand. He didn't need to. Just being there, sitting across from him, made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. But healing doesn't end when rehab does. The real work begins after. That's when the world comes back, loud and fast. And I had to learn how to live in it. Sober. Scarred. Still healing. But alive. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. I moved into a small apartment a few blocks away from the recovery center. It wasn't much, just a one-room space with a mattress on the floor, a chip stove, and a cracked window. But it was mine. My name was on the lease. I had never had that before. I sat on the floor that first night and just stared at the keys in my hand. I belonged somewhere. Finally, Michael helped me apply for a job. He wanted to give me money, but I said no. I needed to earn it myself. I needed to feel like I could stand on my own feet. So I got a part-time cleaning job at a local community center. It was simple work, mopping floors, wiping windows, cleaning toilets. But it was honest. No lies. No selling myself. No pretending. The first time I got a paycheck, I cried in the bathroom. It wasn't much, but it was the first thing I had earned without giving away a piece of my body. But even with the job, the apartment, and the clean days piling up, the past didn't leave me alone. Some nights, I still woke up screaming. I'd dream I was back in that motel room, or being dragged by the arm, or hiding under a table while men laughed nearby. Other times, I'd hear a loud noise, a car backfiring, a door slamming, and I'd freeze, heart racing, hands shaking. Even the smell of certain colognes would make my stomach turn. And relationships? That was the hardest part. Michael was patient. He never pushed. Never crossed lines. We spent time together, movies, long walks, coffee at his place. He'd tell me stories about his childhood, his job, his favorite books. He listened when I talked, even when I couldn't find the right words. I liked being near him, but I was still afraid. One night, we were sitting on his couch, close but not touching. He turned to me and said gently, "You don't have to run anymore, Vanessa. I'm not here to hurt you." I looked at him, and I wanted to believe it. But a voice inside me whispered, what if he changes? What if he's like the others? What if love turns into control? So I said what I had always said when I got scared. I don't know how to do this. And he just nodded. Then we'll learn together. It took time. Weeks. Months. The first time he held my hand, I flinched, then cried. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. And that confused me. He wiped my tears and said nothing. Just stayed. I kept going to therapy. Miss Laura helped me face the lies I believed for years. That I was dirty. That I was worthless. That I was broken beyond repair. She made me say new truths out loud, even when I didn't believe them yet. I am not what happened to me. I am allowed to feel safe. I deserve love. The more I said them, the more real they felt. Then, something happened that changed everything. A young girl walked into the community center one afternoon, maybe 13. Dirty clothes, skinny arms, tired eyes. I saw myself in her. She sat alone for hours, not talking to anyone. I walked over, sat beside her. I didn't ask questions. I just handed her a granola bar and said, I used to sit here too, alone, thinking no one saw me. But I see you. She didn't speak. But she took the granola bar. And that was enough. That night, I realized something. Maybe all the pain I went through wasn't for nothing. Maybe I could help someone else feel less invisible. I talked to the center manager. Asked if I could start volunteering with at-risk youth. She said yes. At first, it was just organizing books. Then cleaning up after art class. Then helping lead small support circles for girls who'd been through abuse. I didn't tell them my whole story. Not yet. But I listened. I understood. And sometimes, understanding is the greatest gift you can give. Michael kept walking beside me. He supported everything I did. He never asked me to be perfect. He never tried to fix me. He just loved me as I was, on the hard days, the quiet days, the healing days. And I started loving myself, too. Slowly. One quiet Sunday morning, he took me to a garden. Just the two of us. The flowers were blooming. The sky was clear. And under the shade of a tall tree, he knelt down, pulled out a small box and said, You've already survived hell. Let me give you heaven. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just cried. And nodded. We didn't rush the wedding. We took our time. We built the life. A real one. Not perfect. But safe, honest, healing. And on the day we said our vows, I stood in front of him, dressed in white. Not because I was pure, but because I was free. After the wedding, something inside me shifted. Not because I had a ring on my finger or a new last name, but because for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not fixed, not perfect, but whole. I had a home, a partner, a purpose, a second chance. And I was finally ready to do something with it. Michael and I moved into a quiet house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just a 2-bedroom home with a small garden and a creaky porch swing. The kind of place that felt peaceful. Safe. Every morning, I sat by the window with my tea, watching the sun rise through the trees, and I whispered the same words. Thank you for one more day. I never stopped being grateful. Because I knew what it felt like to sleep on concrete, to be forgotten, to be a body instead of a person. I hadn't forgotten where I came from, and I didn't want to. I kept volunteering at the community center, but something inside me was growing. A fire, a vision. I wanted to do more, to help more girls like me, girls still trapped in pain, girls being told they were worthless, girls who didn't know that healing was even possible. So, I share my idea with Michael. I want to start a program, I said. Not just counseling. A real place. A second chance. He didn't laugh. He didn't question it. He simply asked, What do you need? And together, we began. We started small. Just one room at the back of the community center. We called it Second Light. Because I believe everyone deserves another chance to shine, even if their first light was stolen, dimmed, or broken. We started with 5 girls, then 10, then 20. Some were fresh out of shelters. Some were leaving the streets. Some came from abusive homes. All of them carried pain in their eyes, the kind of pain I knew too well. We gave them food, clean beds, therapy, GED classes, job training, and most of all, we gave them love. But it wasn't easy. Some girls ran away. Some relapsed. Some cursed me out and slammed doors. And every time that happened, I had to remind myself, this is how pain looks before it becomes healing. I had been them. Angry, scared, lost. Now I was standing on the other side, proof that healing is slow, messy, and worth every moment. One girl named Belle reminded me of myself at 16. She had tough eyes and a quiet voice. Always sat in the back. Always acted like she didn't care. One night, I stayed late. She was sitting on the steps outside, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up and said, "You don't get it." I sat beside her. "Try me." She frowned. "I'm too far gone. Nobody wants someone like me." I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I was born in a trash bin. If I can come back from that, so can you." Tears filled her eyes. She didn't cry. She just nodded. A month later, she got her first job. We kept growing. We turned Second Light into a full nonprofit organization, got donations, hired counselors, bought an old building and fixed it up. It wasn't just a shelter anymore. It was a home. I also went back to school part-time. I wanted to become a certified trauma counselor. Walking into that classroom the first day, wearing a backpack and holding a notebook, I felt like a scared child again. But I pushed through. I sat in the front row. I asked questions. I studied until midnight. And after 2 years, I stood in a room full of students and received my diploma. Me, Vanessa Hart, the girl who once begged strangers for food, was now qualified to guide others through their healing. Michael was my biggest cheerleader. He never missed a graduation, a speech, or a big day at the center. He made me feel like I was the most powerful woman in the world, even on days I still felt small. And together, we made another big decision. We adopted 2 children from foster care, a boy and a girl. They had wounds just like I did, but they also had hope. We named our daughter Hope because she was our reminder that no matter how dark things get, there's always a reason to keep going. Always a reason to believe in tomorrow. I still have bad days. Some wounds never fully go away. There are still nights when I wake up gasping. Still moments when I smell something and it takes me back to a place I don't want to remember. But now I know what to do with that pain. I talk about it. I teach from it. I use it to build bridges for others who are drowning. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about facing it and learning how to walk forward anyway. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see trash. I don't see shame. I see a survivor, a mother, a wife, a counselor, a woman who rebuilt her life from nothing. I see Vanessa Hart. I never thought I'd get here. Never thought I'd live past 30. Never thought I'd be clean, or married, or standing in front of a crowd, holding a microphone in one hand and a shaking note in the other. But here I was, in a room full of people, some survivors, some students, some mothers, some daughters. Some with scars on their arms. Some with scars in their hearts. And they were all here to listen. To me. I stood on the stage at a women's conference. The lights were warm, the room quiet. I wore a simple black dress and my wedding ring. My hair was tied back. No makeup. Just me. Raw. Real. Whole. I looked out into the crowd. And I spoke. My name is Vanessa Hart. But I wasn't born with that name. I was born in a dumpster behind a grocery store in Detroit. My birth mother left me wrapped in a bloody blanket, alone in the cold. I was found hours later, barely alive. That's where my life began. But it wasn't where it ended. I was raised in foster homes. I was beaten, used, silenced. I was trafficked, addicted, forgotten. I hated myself. I thought I was trash. I believed I was too broken to ever be loved. Then someone saw me. He didn't try to fix me.
He stood by me.
And little by little I stood back up. I got clean. I went to therapy. I failed. I tried again. I forgave myself. And now I help other girls find their way too. I looked down at the faces watching me. Some were crying. Some were nodding. Some were holding each other's hands. And I continued. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because someone out there, maybe even you, thinks it's too late. That the abuse you went through has defined you. That the drugs have ruined your body. That the streets have taken your worth. That no one will ever love you after what you've done or what's been done to you. But I'm here to say, you're still here. And that means your story is not over. The room was silent. And then I shared something I had written years ago, something I used to say to myself when I was trying to stay clean. I called it my truth poem. You are not trash. You are not used goods. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a light that never went out, just covered by darkness. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to feel joy again. You are more than what hurt you. You are worth saving, even if no one ever tried to save you. Save yourself. Start now. After the speech, people came up to me. Some hugged me. Some whispered, "Thank you," through tears. One young girl said, "That's my story too." I held her hand and said, "Then let's rewrite the ending." Today, I run Second Light full-time with a team of counselors and volunteers who were once like me, survivors who now serve. We've helped over 500 girls in the last 3 years. We've watched them finish school, become mothers, get married, stay clean, and rise. Every time a girl walks into our doors, scared and silent, I remember that little girl staring through a foster home window at children she thought she'd never be like. Now I tell them, you're not too late. You're right on time. Michael and we're still here, still in love, still growing. Our daughter, Hope, just turned 7. She loves painting. She talks a lot more than I ever did. And every night, when I tuck her in, she says, "Mommy, you're my best friend." I close my eyes and say back, "And you are my miracle." Because she is. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've been through. But if you've made it this far in my story, maybe you're someone who's looking for a reason to keep going. So here's mine. You are the reason this story had to be told. You are the proof that pain doesn't have the final word. You are still breathing. And that means there is still hope. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. Start small. Ask for help. Say one kind thing to yourself today. And then say another tomorrow. Because if someone like me could come out of the darkest hole and walk into the light, so can you. With all my heart, Vanessa Hart. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Thanks for watching.